This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, we have breaking news. The Atlantic has just published a brand new piece by Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris. And it has the details and the text messages that the government says was not classified. And it tells you all about what is happening 31 minutes before they launch the planes that drop the bombs in Yemen. Brian Stelter joining us now with more details. There are huge revelations in this, and they certainly, how would you describe what you're seeing in the text messages?
These are shockingly detailed descriptions of the bombs that are about to fall in Yemen, and Jeffrey Goldberg is getting these details many minutes before the bombs fall. If this is not classified information, I would like the president to tell us what would count as classified information. Now, The Atlantic is publishing this on theatlantic.com because Trump and his aides have said that none of this is classified. That has been the main defense from the Trump White House in the past 2 days, that these text messages were a mistake. Goldberg never should have seen them, but nothing was classified. Nobody was in any danger. That's the argument we've heard advanced. Because of that argument, Goldberg went back to his colleagues and talked with his lawyers at The Atlantic, and they decided to go ahead and publish the text messages that they had originally withheld. Remember, Goldberg withheld some of this information because he thought it could risk national security, because it could have put U.S. military members in harm's way. So now he's decided to go ahead and publish the full unredacted text message chain with one omission. He is still withholding the name of a CIA employee because the CIA has asked him to do so. So that is notable. There still is something in these messages that is considered so sensitive that The Atlantic is choosing not to publish it. But the headline here is that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did send detailed descriptions of the military strike in Yemen to this group ahead of time. Goldberg was able to read these messages ahead of time. He looked at it and didn't know if it was real or not, but then he looked on social media and saw that the bombs were beginning to fall in Yemen. People can read this for themselves on the Atlantic website, but what you see in Hegseth's message, the key message here is from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and he specifies the timing for the attack, the first wave, the second wave, which military fighters were going to be used, and exactly what would happen when. So again, if that's not classified information, honestly, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I just want to quickly read one of the things. It says, time now, weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch. And then it describes in detail what they are about to do. So clearly, these are war plans over and over and over again. Pete Hegseth has said these are not war plans. This is going to be a very difficult thing for the administration to deny at this point with this being published. Thank you so much, Brian Stelter. Stick around with us for a second. John?
All right. And furiously going through these texts right now to get a sense of what they are. I want to bring in our chief national security reporter, Alex Marquardt. And Alex, what is striking is that some of the messages that were sent before the attack took place talked about which weapons, which aircrafts would be used, and what time the bombs would be dropped.
Yeah, and this all goes to the question of what are war plans, because the pushback that we have heard from the Trump administration and from Pete Hegseth specifically, who put the most detail in this chat, was these are not war plans. So that's what they're quibbling with. These are certainly strike plans, because this is an extraordinary amount of detail. Now, The Atlantic is saying that they feel comfortable publishing this because of this repeated pushback from the administration, that what we are looking at is not classified. But I just want to reiterate what our colleague Brian Stelter said. If this is not classified, we don't know what is. This is some of the most valuable information when it comes to carrying out strikes that, in fact, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe said yesterday, this is the kind of stuff, these pre-strike deliberations should take place in classified channels. They did not. So not only do we have all kinds of information about what was going to happen, we now also have information about what happened afterwards, essentially a post-strike assessment report, which is not something that we had seen in the original report from Jeffrey Goldberg. All he had said was that Pete Hegseth, in the hours prior to this strike on the Houthis on March 15th, laid out operational details, timing, weaponry, etc. So a lot more details here. We have at 12:15, Pete Hegseth says the first launch of F-18s. And then in all caps, as he's laying out the timing of how this is going to go, he writes, "This is when the first bombs will definitely drop." That is extraordinarily sensitive information. And the point that we have been making and that Jeffrey Goldberg and his colleague Shane Harris make in this report is, if it were not Goldberg in this chat, if it were someone else who could have shared this information with the Houthis, with other adversaries, they would have had access to an extraordinary level of detail about what was just going to happen. But I really do want to highlight some of the new information that we got here about what happened in the wake of this strike, because what we had understood was that Pete Hegseth and perhaps John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, that they had put the most sensitive information into this group chat. Here we have Mike Waltz, the national security advisor. He's also adding some extraordinarily sensitive information into this chat because he gives the group a sense of what happened in the aftermath. He writes that a building collapsed. He actually said that specifically to J.D. Vance, the vice president. He talks about this building collapsing, the fact that they were able to kill what he called the top missile guy who was walking to his girlfriend's building, and it has now collapsed. So this is an after-action report from the National Security Advisor. He praises the intelligence community. He praises Pete Kurilla, the head of Central Command. So this is just, again, a remarkable level of detail. We have heard in the past 24 hours the Trump administration sticking to their guns, saying that none of this is classified information, but that they don't want it out there because they don't want, as Carolyn Levitt said, internal and private deliberations amongst high-level senior staff to be put out there. They objected to this release, but we now have much fuller detail in terms of what was in these text messages on this Signal chat. And of course, guys, this comes just an hour and 15 minutes before these intelligence officials are supposed to sit down again in front of an intelligence committee on Capitol Hill.
This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. Again, an extraordinary level of detail on a text exchange before the actual bombs drop. And one point I want to reiterate here is that, well, Pete Hegseth and others say this was not classified information. That might be semantic only because Pete Hegseth himself can't even retroactively say information was not classified. Alex Marquardt, thank you for that reporting.
Let's get to Jeff Zeleny, who is at the White House for us. Jeff, these are extraordinary text messages that a reporter was added into this group. Mike Waltz saying it was a mistake. How is the Trump administration and the Trump White House going to explain this? And are you hearing anything from them? Because they have been standing by all of the members of this group, including the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Look, Sarah, as you're just saying there, we're getting an extraordinary minute-by-minute look at some of those messages now that The Atlantic has published. In the wake of the president's and others' assistance yesterday, there was no classified information in these, but we're also getting a peek behind what led to the publishing of these. The Atlantic, we're told, as they're writing in the magazine this morning, that they alerted the White House and other national security agencies and said that they did plan to publish and ask if there were any objections. So the White House press secretary is pushing back again this morning, a very familiar page from the Trump playbook, and again attacking the Atlantic, calling it a hoax, going after some long-held grievances that the president has held with Jeffrey Goldberg, who's been the author of several pieces over the years that the president has not liked. But the White House press secretary is also going after a Wall Street Journal editorial this morning that is taking a specific look at Steve Witkoff. He, of course, is one of the president's close friends, who's a Middle East envoy. He was meeting with Vladimir Putin on March 13th at the time that all these conversations and signal messages were going on. But the White House is pushing back and saying he was not using his personal phone while he was in Moscow. He was using a government phone when he returned back. But the actual substance of this, so this is what certainly will be shined a light on at the House hearing that is now scheduled to begin in just a little over an hour. The very specific details of these wartime plans, from the weather conditions for the bombs that are about to drop. So again, as we saw yesterday, the light was shining on the Defense Secretary. We saw the Director of National Intelligence and the CIA Director saying it was up to the Defense Secretary to answer questions if these were indeed the classified war plans. And now we can see for ourselves very operational details there that certainly are now giving new fodder for more questions. So the White House was thinking yesterday, was hoping that they were going to put this behind them, at least the political fallout from this. And they're trying to make it into a political scandal, not a national security controversy. We shall see how successful they are in doing that. But now, having all of these plans in front of us, it certainly looks like minute by minute by minute what was about to happen certainly seems like war plans and war planning to anyone who's reading it.